This video is going to be about classifying polynomials. We're going to specifically be talking about what is a polynomial, classifying polynomials by the number of terms, putting a polynomial in standard form, and finding the degree of a polynomial. So let's start off with what a polynomial is. Specifically, a polynomial is an expression of more than two algebraic terms, especially the sum of several terms. Okay, that's a lot of words that doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's give some examples of that. So here are three different examples of polynomials with different numbers of terms. So the term is just the two different parts that are separated by either addition or subtraction. So this first polynomial has one term, this second polynomial has two terms, and the final polynomial over here has four terms. And those terms actually are going to help us give the polynomial a name. So we're going to talk about that next, is classifying polynomials by the number of terms that they have. So here I have a bunch of polynomials, and I just want to look at what their names are. So if I have one term here, we have one term, we call this a monomial. If there are two terms, 1, 2, then we call it a binomial. Three terms, we call it a trinomial. And if there are four or more terms, so this one would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, four or more terms, we just call it a polynomial. Now, with that being said, it's important to realize that all of these are polynomials. But these three in particular get special names based on the number of terms that they have. I want to focus just a minute on this monomial because we want to talk about the different parts of a monomial, which the main ones are going to be the coefficient and the degree of a monomial. So if we look at these three monomials and we want to find the coefficient and the degree, the coefficient is the number multiplied to the variable, like I said. So here in this first one, my coefficient is going to be 5. Now the degree is going to be the sum of the exponents in the binomial. Oh, I missed an L over there. Of the binomial. So here I've got my x has a degree of 4 and my y has a degree of 1. So the degree of my monomial is going to be 4 plus 1, so the degree is going to be 5. On the next one, the number being multiplied is -7, so the coefficient is going to be -7. And the degree is going to be 3, since there's only one variable with one exponent. Next over here, we're going to have a coefficient of 1/3. And the degree is going to be, if I look here at my x has a 7. M would have a degree of 1. And y would have a degree of 1. So I would have a total degree of 9 for this monomial. Now it's important to know the degree of a monomial because that's going to help us with our next part, which is going to be putting polynomials in standard form. So standard form just means that each term or each monomial within a polynomial must be put in descending order. So here if I look, I've got a degree, this term has a degree of 4, this has 3, 2, 1, and then this would be has a degree of 0. So this is what we need to have for standard form. Here are three examples that we want to try out. So let's start off by just looking at what the degree of each of these terms are. So this would be a degree of 0, degree 2, and a degree 1. So we just need to put them in descending order. So I would start off with 5x squared, since it has the largest degree, minus x, because it's 1, and then 0 would be 4. So that would be standard form. This next one, well, there's only one term, so it's already in standard form. So we're just going to rewrite that as 3z to the 4th, standard form. And this next example, I put a little bit of a trick in here. If we go through and we look at the degrees of each one, this x squared has a degree of 2. This x negative 10xm squared has a degree of 3. Remember that we have to add the exponents of the variables. 5m has a degree of 1, and negative 2x to the fourth has a degree of 4. So I want to put the highest one first, so it would be negative 2 x to the fourth minus 10xm squared, because that has 3. Next I would have plus x squared, and finally I would have plus 5m. Now, once a polynomial is put into standard form, we have another term that we need to pay attention to, which is called the leading coefficient. So if we want to find the leading coefficient in each one of these, we're just looking for the coefficient of the leading term, or the term that has the highest degree. So here, if I look at my leading term, it's going to be 5x squared, and the coefficient of that term is going to be 5. So the leading coefficient, which I'm just going to put as LC, is going to be 5. If I look at the next one, the leading term, and the only term, has a coefficient of negative 3. So the leading coefficient is going to be negative 3. And then finally, this last one, the leading coefficient is going to be negative 2. All right, so last thing we have to talk about is the degree of a polynomial. So the degree of a polynomial is just the degree of the leading term. So once again, we are only looking at this first term whenever we are looking at the degree of a polynomial. And we're just looking for what is that degree. So for instance, the degree of this polynomial is going to be 2 because the leading term has a degree of 2. The second one is going to have a degree of 4 because the term has a degree of 4. And then also same thing for this next one, the degree is going to be 4 because this first term is 4. So that pretty much sums up everything that you need to know about classifying polynomials. From putting them into standard form, remember that classifying them by degree has nothing to do with the number of terms. Here, by degree has nothing to do with the number of terms. We're classifying it by the number of terms, gives you the monomial, binomial, and trinomial. And all of these, the monomial, binomial, and trinomial, are polynomials. And that should about do it. So there should be some extra practice worksheets on the website if you want to make sure that you have a full understanding of that. Otherwise, you can move on to the next video.